Delayed payments from unsold tea in Kenya's western tea-growing regions of Kisii, Nyamira, and portions of Kericho and Nandi will likely force the Kenya Tea Development Agency, KTDA, to borrow billions of shillings to protect the livelihoods of some of the 6 million people directly and indirectly employed in the tea industry. KTDA mortgaged its shares for about 18.2 billion shillings, approximately 140.5 million US dollars, to pay farmers an early bonus in July 2022 before the national election. KTDA later took out approximately 50 million in bank loans and transferred about 4 billion shillings from its network of factories. A payment on the 2022 loan is now due. Insufficient funds from sales may force KTDA to borrow about 20 billion shillings, approximately 154 million US dollars, to fund the annual workers' bonus in October. 60% of the tea on offer during the last week of July remains unsold, compounding a crisis due to oversupply. The stocks of at least 100 million kilos, worth an estimated 32 billion shillings, about 250 million USD, have accumulated during the past year, bursting warehouses, limiting storage for nearly harvested tea, and driving down prices. Exporters took advantage of the situation by ignoring the government's minimum price of $2.43 per kilo, imposed in 2022 to compensate growers facing high inflation and the rising cost of labor and inputs. Pakistan buyers are reportedly paying desperate sellers less than $2 per kilo. According to the Tea Board, Pakistan is the top destination for Kenyan tea, importing 50.8 million kilos in the first quarter, up from 39.3 million kilos recorded during the same period in 2023. According to Agriculture and Crops Development Principal Secretary Paul Rono, some factories are taking loans to offset growers' dues. Rono told The Nation that the crisis is worsening at the auction, where sales by volume total only 40% of the tea on offer. Quote, "We have about 100 million kilos of unsold tea, which is way above the international set standard of about 30 million kilos," he said while visiting the Mombasa tea auction. His tour included stops at KTDA-run Litin, Kapitet, Choror, and Caprocos tea factories that are the worst hit by the glut. Quote, "We shall waive warehouse charges as we work around the clock to sell the tea in the next few months," he said. Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi has demanded a full accounting of stocks far exceeding the domestic market's capacity. The 100 million kilos of unsold tea are valued at about 31.58 billion shillings, approximately 244 million US dollars, based on the fixed minimum price of $2.43. It's about 315 shillings per kilo of produce from the western part of the country. The unsold tea is mainly from west of the Rift Valley growing regions. Dr. Rono's admission of a glut came less than 3 weeks after the Nairobi Securities Exchange listed firm Williamson Tea and Kapkochura Tea recommended the destruction of huge stocks of the unsold commodity held by KTDA to save the industry from being choked by excess supply, which has hurt prices. The two tea firms said tea prices have fallen to unsustainable levels because of market saturation and criticized the minimum pricing system, which has hurt producers unable to supply top-grade tea. In his financial report for the year ended March, Williamson Tea writes that, quote, "Despite the positive results of the period, the prospects of the company and Kenyan tea industry are dire. Tea prices have declined to unsustainable levels in the face of market saturation and the consequences of an estimated 200 million kilograms of unsold KTDA teas." The report calls for, quote, "dramatic action to enable the market to return to a normal dynamic and for prospects to improve." The destruction of all unsold KTDA teas and the removal of the auction minimum price system is needed with immediate effect, writes Williamson. Chinese tea growers exported 196,400 metric tons during the first half of 2024, up 2.2% year over year, according to the Tea Industry Committee of the China Association for the Promotion of International Agricultural Cooperation. Green tea accounted for 87% of total export volume, advancing 1.8% by volume in June compared to June 2023. Black tea volume fell by 26.6% during the same period. During the period, Chinese import volume of tea, mainly from Vietnam, reached 24,400 metric tons, an increase of 41.5%, while the import value of tea reached $72 million, up 10% year on year. According to Wei Yu, Secretary General of the Tea Industry Committee, Belt and Road partner countries were the biggest trade partners during the first 6 months of the year, with their tea trade with China reaching 168,400 metric tons during the period. During an industrial conference in southwest China's Jiangsu province, the committee released an annual report on China's tea trade with the Belt and Road partner countries. The report points out that green tea was the major export category in the tea trade with Belt and Road partner countries, accounting for 92.4% of the total. Tea exports to the U.S., compiled by First Tea from statistics provided by the China Tea Marketing Association and the U.S. Census Bureau, revealed China tea imports are up 9.4% compared to 2023, but the average price per kilo is down by 22.6% to $3.96 per kilo compared to June 2023. While a quarter of all U.S. green tea imports by volume were from China, the value of this tea was only 11% of total green tea imports, reflecting a big price gap for Japanese green tea imports versus green tea from China. China ranks first in global tea exports globally. According to the General Department of Vietnam Customs, neighboring Vietnam showed a 30% increase in tea exports during the first half of the year. This trend reversed a steep decline in 2023, returning Vietnam to a value growth that had extended from 2019 through 2022. Exports to China quadrupled during the first 2 months of this year, rising 121% in volume and 411% in value to an average of $1.64 per kilo. The Vietnam Tea Association reports that Vietnam currently ranks 5th in the world in tea exports and 7th in global tea production. China's reopening of its border after the COVID-19 panic is the main factor behind the strong growth of tea exports in this huge market, according to the Ministry of Industry and Trade. Turkey sees a tea export opportunity in rising temperatures that have hampered tea production along the Black Sea coast. Sefet Kalyonsu, chairperson of the Eastern Black Sea Exporters Association, told Anadolu Agency that exports are off to a good start in 2024, continuing a trend that has expanded volume and reach. Turkey exported 2,898 metric tons of tea from January through June, generating $14 million in sales. Belgium received $5.2 million, the United Kingdom $1.9 million, and the U.S. imported $1 million, the top 3 destinations for Turkish tea. In 2024, Turkey will export to 112 countries, including France, Singapore, Qatar, the People's Republic of China, and Bahrain, which were not among the destinations in the same period last year. Kalyonsu describes significant efforts to boost tea exports that include experiments in developing drought-resistant cultivars suited to the Black Sea terroir. Quote, firstly, addressing the issue of global warming, which is one of the biggest risks in agriculture, is crucial for increasing yield and quality in the crops. This involves improving yield habits, developing innovative products tailored to each country's taste and consumer habits, and focusing on R&D and innovation, said Kalyonsu. Scientists in the Black Sea province of Rise have initiated a study to identify drought-tolerant tea varieties, a joint project by Erdogan University and Kekir, the largest tea producer in Turkey. The goal is to safeguard the future of tea cultivation, which is widespread in the region and traditionally relies on rainy climates. 49% of the country's tea exports are from Rise, generating revenue of $6.85 million on exports to 24 countries. The distinct seasons and colder climate along the Black Sea coast see plants covered in snow in the winter. Frost acts as a natural barrier to diseases, meaning the plants don't need chemical protection, lending the leaves a natural, strong flavor. The drought-resistant project involves importing 4 different tea plants from Japan, China, and Azerbaijan to determine which varieties best adapt to the local climate. 12 high-quality varieties have been identified in Rise's National Tea Gene Pool, which preserves 2,034 tea plant varieties. These varieties will be studied over the next 3 years to ascertain their drought tolerance, and findings will be shared with tea producers. Quote, in 2008, we launched a comprehensive initiative to collect and preserve Turkey's tea gene resources. From this collection, we identified 12 top candidate varieties, said Keban Yazisi, the director of the university's Tea and Tea Products Research Center. Quote, as we progressed to the recommendation stage, we submitted a project to the Scientific and Technological Research Council of Turkey to identify drought-tolerant varieties crucial for the future of tea agriculture in Turkey and worldwide. We aim to determine the most drought-tolerant varieties among these 12 within the next 3 years, Yazisi explained. We aim to offer these to our producers, enabling them to vitalize their tea gardens effectively. Kalyansu also noted the need to support all tea manufacturing companies in the small category. Quote, we believe that by improving yield and quality in the gardens, our tea exports will reach much higher figures and we will become a significant player in the global market. End quote.
Produced by Adavita Studios. Connect your voice to the world.